Chosen one, God is warning about a man. His name will really impress you. It always starts with a feeling, a nudge, a moment of unease that seems to come from nowhere. Something about him doesn't sit right, even though his presence is magnetic, his words eloquent, and his name, well, his name almost seems too divine to be true. The name alone turns heads, commands respect, carries an aura like it was plucked out of ancient power. But don't be deceived by the impressiveness of a name. God is warning you now, chosen one. This man has entered your atmosphere not to elevate you, but to distract you from the precise path you've been preparing for. He looks right, he talks right, he even prays right. But something about his energy clashes with your spirit, and that's because he was never sent to stay. He was allowed to appear, only to reveal what you needed to see. There's a reason you're being nudged to pay attention. Right now, God is highlighting patterns, not just personalities. You've grown spiritually, and with every growth comes a new test disguised as a blessing. This time, it arrives dressed in charm and promise. His name will impress you so much that you'll think just for a moment that maybe, just maybe, he's the one who was prophesied to arrive. But this is your moment to stand strong in your discernment. Watch this video until the very end, and write your warmest wishes in the comments and write Amen along with the number 99. This is how you agree in faith and energize the heavens to align with your spirit's clarity. Now, chosen one, like this video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and let's begin. Some names open doors, but not all doors are meant to be walked through. And what God is revealing to you right now is not just about the person. It's about the influence that person could have if you're not rooted deeply in your truth. He will carry the kind of voice that makes others lean in, the kind of charisma that makes you question what you knew to be certain. He might have status, influence, and even the vocabulary of someone spiritually tuned, but that doesn't mean he's been given access by God. Some individuals are allowed to approach you just so God can show you that you've mastered the art of seeing beyond what dazzles. This is that moment. God has already whispered something into your soul about this. You've had dreams, visions, unexplainable pauses in your thoughts every time you engage with this man's energy. And while nothing outwardly has gone wrong yet, that's exactly why this message is urgent. Because sometimes the biggest spiritual threats are the ones that come without chaos. They come with calm. They come with order. They come appearing exactly how your previous prayers sounded. But God is not just answering the version of your prayers from the past. He is aligning you with your future. And this man, this name, no matter how impressive it sounds, is not a part of that alignment. You were born into this lifetime with an anointing that provokes imitation. Your glow makes others try to match your frequency. Your voice carries the code of someone who has been through divine fire and emerged marked. And the moment your breakthrough gets near, God starts testing your awareness, not to confuse you, but to certify you. That's why this particular man stands out. His timing, his entrance, his ability to mirror some of your deepest spiritual needs. It's all too perfectly placed. But God is pulling back the veil. You're not just being warned to avoid him. You're being prepared to confront the pattern of how distraction tries to wrap itself in divine packaging. What makes this even more potent is that the name itself will carry prophetic weight. You'll hear it and something in you will pause. Maybe it reminds you of a story. Maybe it echoes something you once heard in prayer. But don't let the power of a name confuse the power of discernment. Lucifer was once the most beautiful. Judas was once close to Jesus. Saul once ruled with stature. Impressive names, grand titles, strong presence. None of these things automatically equal divine purpose. And God knows that you're finally at a stage where you no longer crave what simply looks right. You crave what aligns right. He will say all the right things. He will present himself as someone who's had divine encounters. He might even reference parts of your journey that feel so deeply personal you'll wonder how he knows. But just because he knows your timeline doesn't mean he belongs in your storyline. You're being lifted into a new atmosphere, chosen one. And that means anything, anyone, that's not ascending with you will either pull you down or delay your rise. This man was not placed before you to stay. He was allowed before you to reveal what still needs to be severed. God isn't just warning you about a man. He's awakening you to a new level of spiritual filtering. You're stepping into a season where even divine-sounding things must be tested. Even anointed-sounding people must be weighed. Your future is too rich. Your purpose is too large. Your calling is too rare to allow someone with impressive branding but hidden intentions to sit at your table. This isn't about judgment. It's about protection. And if you've been feeling torn, confused, or spiritually heavy after engaging with someone recently, trust that that's not random. That's revelation in disguise. It's easy to be impressed by a name, but the spiritual realm doesn't move by names. It moves by permission. Who has God actually permitted in your space? Who has He ordained to walk beside you? Who has He anointed to speak into your life? Those questions matter now more than ever. Because the moment this man is removed from your inner circle, watch what begins to flow. Clarity, acceleration, peace that doesn't need explanation. That's the sign of divine alignment. But as long as He's present, there will always be a fog where there used to be focus. You've worked too hard to rebuild yourself. You've healed silently, fought battles privately, and remained faithful, even when heaven felt quiet. This next chapter is sacred, and God is being clear with you. Do not allow someone with surface-level spark to contaminate the depth you've cultivated. This is your legacy we're talking about. This is your divine authority. You can't afford to be impressed by what merely sounds good. You must be anchored by what is good. What is God-sent, not just God-sounding. It's not just about this man. It's about the temptation to go backward into familiar spiritual traps, to mistake flattery for confirmation, to confuse admiration for partnership. But deep down you already know this. That's why God had to send this word now, because you're on the edge of something major, the kind of breakthrough that shifts everything, not just in your finances or relationships, but in your spiritual ranking. This man's presence was a final checkpoint, one last attempt by distraction to reroute your divine path. And here you are, still standing, still discerning, still growing. That means you passed the test. You saw it, didn't you? That subtle shift in atmosphere when he entered the room, that quiet pressure in your chest. You couldn't name it, but something sacred inside you began to resist even as your mind tried to agree. That's not your imagination. That's God's protection speaking in a language the flesh doesn't understand. Your spirit is miles ahead of your thoughts. It knows when something is off. It senses when a presence, no matter how polished, is coated with contradiction. And this man, with the name that carries admiration, that name that stirs curiosity, that man is not here by divine commission. He's here as a reminder. The path is too narrow to allow distractions to dress like destiny. God is highlighting something more than just his name. He's showing you how names can be spells, how reputations can be illusions, how titles can mask true intentions. The more you're impressed, the more your guard lowers. And God isn't having that anymore. This season is too critical. The next move requires clarity, not compromise. The divine blueprint for your life cannot be risked on someone who performs righteousness but lacks divine instruction. And that's what makes this warning so fierce. Because this isn't just about your emotions. It's about your elevation. Your life is no longer moving in circles. You're climbing. And when you're climbing, even the slightest misstep can cost you momentum. He knows the right words. He's studied the language of the spiritually elite. He mimics the phrases of those who walk with God, but his heart is far from obedience. He's studied the way people like you respond to God words and high-frequency talk. He understands the choreography of performance, But God sees the soul. God hears what's spoken in silence. And that's where the discrepancy lives. It's in the stillness. That's where this man is exposed. Not in how loud he praises, but in what his presence disrupts within you. Every time you've allowed him in your space, something shifted. Your thoughts became hazy, your prayers felt distant, your clarity weakened. That's not chemistry, that's interference. And here's the deeper mystery. You were always meant to encounter him. God didn't let this happen to punish you. He allowed it to promote you, to show you how sharp your discernment has become. You caught it this time. You noticed earlier than before. You didn't fall for the show. Even if part of you wanted to, something higher in you refused. That's growth. That's elevation. That's spiritual muscle being activated. And that is exactly why God is proud of you. Because in a season where everything is accelerating, you didn't rush into what felt familiar. You paused. You prayed. You questioned. And in that hesitation, God had room to speak. Now God is speaking with urgency. This man is not who you think he is. He may be known, respected, and applauded by many, but he is not chosen for you. His story is not your alignment. His journey is not your covenant. He carries impressive energy, but it is not sanctified for your path. And if you allow him to remain, his voice will drown out the whisper of God. His attention will distract you from divine focus. His validation will make you second-guess the approval that already came from heaven. And that's not a risk you can take. The closer you get to breakthrough, the more skilled the distractions become. The enemy doesn't always show up in storms. Sometimes he shows up as charm, as beauty, as someone who knows how to speak your language. But God is showing you how to decode motives, how to interpret energy, how to see the invisible marks on people's spirits, even when their words sound divine. Because you are not just being prepared for blessings, you are being positioned to steward influence. And with that influence comes the responsibility to guard your gates. Not everything that knocks deserves a welcome. Not every name deserves a seat at your table. You've been through too much to let your next season be hijacked by a man who looks like your prayer, but moves like your past. You've come too far. You've sacrificed too much. This isn't just about relationships. This is about resonance. If his presence doesn't make your purpose sharper, if his presence doesn't draw you deeper into God's voice, if his presence clouds your clarity, he is not for you. Let that be enough. God is preparing something monumental for you. That's why this warning is precise. That's why the timing is intentional. Because you're not just walking into a new chapter, you're walking into a new realm. One where distractions must bow, where false alignments are broken, where only divine connections survive. And that's why this man had to be exposed before the breakthrough manifested. Because if he stayed, the next blessing would be delayed. And now that you see it, you can release it. You can breathe again. You can shake off the pressure of trying to make something work that was never designed to fit. You can let go of the image, the hope, the illusion. You can return to your clarity. Because clarity is holy. Clarity is power. And God has gifted you with both. There is no condemnation in this realization. There is only confirmation. You passed a test many others failed. You discerned something that others would have fallen for. You paid attention when the atmosphere shifted. That's proof you're ready for more. That's evidence that your roots have grown deep, that your ears are tuned to the frequency of heaven. And that makes you unstoppable. God is watching how you respond to this moment, not out of judgment, but out of joy. Because heaven celebrates when a chosen one sees the trap before it's triggered, when a heart chooses obedience over chemistry, when a soul refuses to be flattered into silence. This is a holy moment. You were warned, and you listened. And that obedience has opened something. You'll feel it soon. The fog will lift. The energy will clear. The gates will open. And what comes next will not impress you. It will align with you. Because God never intended for you to be impressed. He intended for you to be empowered. There's a hush in the spirit realm around you right now. Not because things are standing still, but because God is moving in silence, shielding you from what was never part of your divine script. You've noticed it. The recent quiet, the slight spiritual distance, the tension that showed up after that man entered your life or your awareness. It's not just coincidence. It's not just a passing feeling. It's a divine signal that something about him doesn't belong in the unfolding masterpiece that God is writing through your life. His name may impress crowds. His presence may shift atmospheres. But God is not impressed by performance. He's drawn to purity. You've likely questioned yourself. Maybe I'm being too careful. Maybe I'm being overly suspicious. But here's what God wants you to know. Spiritual caution is not paranoia. It's preservation. You were not given spiritual eyes to ignore red flags wrapped in gold. You were not gifted discernment so you could blend in with the naive. You were chosen to see, to feel, to hear what others overlook. And right now, God is affirming what your soul already whispered. This man is not a door. He's a detour. Every time you tried to excuse the unease, your spirit pushed back. That wasn't just you. It was God trying to interrupt the illusion. He knows how far you've come. He knows the price you paid to protect your anointing. He knows that the oil on your life is not for casual interactions or connections built on charisma instead of covenant. That's why this is happening now, not later, not after heartbreak, but before the damage, before the entanglement, before the counterfeit has a chance to steal the space meant for the divine. And here's the part you need to know deeply. This man might not even realize he's a distraction. He may genuinely believe he's offering you something you need. He may think his presence is a gift. But it's not about his awareness. It's about God's assignment. And if his presence doesn't activate your purpose, if it interrupts your flow, if it competes with the voice of God, then no matter how beautiful the surface, the soul of that connection is not divine. And it must go. You didn't come this far to fall for flattery. You didn't survive the wilderness just to get pulled into a performance. You didn't pass spiritual exams just to link arms with someone who doesn't understand the depth of your calling. The name might sound prophetic. It might even mirror a dream you once had. But just because something looks familiar doesn't mean it's faithful. God doesn't just bring what looks good. He brings what is right. And this moment right here, this one where you're awake, alert, and no longer denying the truth, is sacred. You are standing in a divine intersection. One road leads to delay, confusion, and cycles. The other leads to clarity, acceleration, and purpose. And God is shining light on the decision, not to pressure you, but to honor you. He's giving you clarity as a form of celebration, because you've matured, because you're ready, because you can now handle what others are still sleeping through. And this man, his season in your life has served its purpose. Whether it was to test your alignment or to reveal old patterns, the point is, it's done. The test is over. The lesson is sealed. The door is closing. And as it closes, you'll feel lighter. You'll dream again. You'll hear God clearer. Because when the counterfeit leaves, the divine voice gets louder. Don't be surprised if the separation feels sudden. Don't be shocked if the connection fades without drama. That's how divine exits work. They're clean. They don't need explosions. They don't demand explanations. When God removes someone, He doesn't always offer closure to the soul. He offers clarity to the spirit. That's what you're receiving now. A clarity that doesn't beg. A clarity that doesn't apologize. A clarity that simply knows. This isn't it. Because the man God sends next, if there is one, is going to feel different. He won't need to impress you. His name won't carry weight in the world. It'll carry peace in your spirit. He won't just know your surface. He'll recognize your soul. And the moment he steps in, you won't feel distracted. You'll feel grounded. You won't lose sleep. You'll sleep deeper. Because God's alignments don't stir confusion. They breathe confirmation. So if this man is still lingering in your space, physically, mentally, spiritually, it's time to release him fully. Bless him. Pray for him. But close the door. Because your next season has no room for spiritual counterfeits. It only has space for what is sent, what is sacred, what is stamped with God's yes. And here's what's wild. Once you obey this instruction, watch what happens within days. The stagnation will break. The heaviness will lift. And doors you forgot were even locked will swing open. Because you didn't just hear God's warning. You acted on it. That's power. That's maturity. That's kingdom obedience. You are not the same person you were before this test. You are sharper, wiser, and deeply aligned. And now that this man's chapter has closed, the real story can begin. The one where everything makes sense. The one where favor flows uninterrupted. The one where you finally feel free. The moment you closed the spiritual door, heaven took notice. It wasn't dramatic. There were no loud declarations, no final texts, no long explanations. Just a quiet, inner knowing that the connection had expired. And that was all God needed. You didn't argue with your discernment this time. You didn't try to edit the warning. You didn't water down the truth to make someone else more comfortable. You stood up for your spirit, and in doing so, you stood up for your future. This is where the story turns, not just for you, but for everything attached to your obedience. Because there are ripple effects to this kind of clarity. The people assigned to your next level are already on their way. The opportunities you thought were delayed were simply being protected from interference. And now that you've cleared the interference, the signals are returning. Quickly, powerfully, unapologetically. The heavens are responding to your yes in ways you couldn't have predicted. And here's the beautiful irony. The man who came to distract you thought he was the blessing. He carried himself like he was the answer. But God had a different view. From heaven's perspective, his arrival wasn't the gift. Your awareness was. You didn't just survive the encounter. You outgrew it. You transcended the test without needing a breakdown. That's a victory most don't recognize. But God does, and he rewards it. Now pay attention to what's happening around you. The atmosphere is shifting. Conversations feel lighter. Thoughts are more focused. You're not second-guessing yourself like before. That's the effect of being aligned. That's what it feels like when a spiritual distraction is removed. It's not always visible, but it's felt. You wake up with more energy. You pray with more clarity. You speak with more boldness. That's what happens when a soul-draining connection is disconnected. And here's the deeper truth. This man wasn't sent to destroy you. He was permitted to reveal you. He showed you the version of yourself that's no longer here. The one who might have entertained charming words. The one who once mistook attention for affection. But not anymore. That old version of you no longer exists. The woman or man who stands now is spiritually fierce, divinely mature, and protected by discernment. And that's what this season demanded. You didn't miss anything. You didn't lose anything. You gained authority. You gained wisdom. You gained silence where chaos used to live. And that silence is not empty. It's sacred. It's the space where your spirit can breathe again, where God's voice can be heard without distortion. And in that space, something is awakening, something deeper, something ancient. A power you forgot you carried is returning, because nothing was ever meant to distract you from your divine identity, not even a man with a beautiful name. There are some names that open doors in the world, and then there are names that shake the heavens. God is not asking you to be impressed with what the world celebrates. He's asking you to be rooted in what he revealed. This moment isn't about fame, titles, or charm. It's about alignment. It's about legacy. It's about choosing what feeds your future over what flatters your present. And you've made that choice. Quietly, boldly, completely. Now watch. Watch what begins to move. Watch what begins to flow. You'll notice how the divine returns to areas that felt delayed. You'll sense how your peace begins to expand. This isn't just coincidence. It's confirmation. God is rewarding your refusal to be impressed by noise. You chose stillness. You chose truth. You chose your calling over comfort. And because of that, God is now choosing to elevate you in ways no man could. And that elevation? It comes with proof. The kind of proof that makes others wonder how you got there. The kind of favor that doesn't make sense to people who only look at surface details. But you'll know. You'll know it was because you listened when it wasn't easy. You obeyed when the temptation to stay was strong. You walked away not because you were weak, but because you were too strong to stay connected to anything God wasn't in. That's what sets you apart, chosen one. Your loyalty is no longer to appearances. It's to alignment. Your devotion is no longer to people who say the right things. It's to those who carry the right frequency. And your heart? It's no longer desperate for attention. It's anchored in purpose. And that anchoring is what the enemy fears most. Because once a chosen one gets anchored, no storm can move them. You are immovable now, untouchable. Not because of pride, but because of promise. You were promised a life that reflects your spiritual identity. You were promised peace, not just people. You were promised direction, not just distractions. And this is the turning point. The pivot away from counterfeit alignment into divine momentum. So keep walking, keep praying, keep listening. You're not walking alone. God is right beside you, smiling, celebrating, and moving things on your behalf. And soon, very soon, the next chapter will unfold. And when it does, the name that once impressed you will be nothing compared to the destiny that's about to elevate you. It's quiet now. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty, but the kind that feels whole, peaceful, settled. This is what it sounds like after a storm passes. Not a storm of chaos, but a storm of spiritual confusion. That man, with all his presence, all his power, all the magnetic pull that came with his name, has faded. Not because you forced it, not because you made a scene, but because God himself stepped in and severed the tie you didn't even know was draining you. This is the aftermath of obedience. It's not dramatic, it's divine. The atmosphere around you is lighter. Your thoughts feel sharper. Your time feels clearer. You're no longer searching for confirmation in places that were only meant to bring disruption. You're no longer hoping someone might become what they never were anointed to be. That's the fruit of a warning heeded. That's the power of divine discernment fully embraced. Now you see. Now you understand what God was really doing all along. It wasn't about the man. It wasn't even about his name. It was about showing you how spiritually mature you've become. That you now recognize the difference between what impresses the eyes and what activates the soul. That you no longer chase moments, you wait for movement. That you no longer tolerate noise in the name of potential. You wait for peace that confirms purpose. And now you are in perfect position for what's next. Because the moment the wrong presence exits, the right presence enters. You'll begin to feel the shift in the way you speak, in the way you walk into rooms, in the way you approach decisions. No longer distracted, no longer divided. You are whole again. You are focused again. Your spiritual frequency is uncluttered. Your path is clear. And it's not because God gave you something. It's because he removed something. And sometimes, that's the greater miracle. This was a sacred separation. Heaven's doing. And though no one else may understand it, you feel the effect. The way your energy has returned. The way your days feel more productive. The way your dreams have begun to clarify again. God is restoring everything that man's presence blurred. He's giving back what you almost lost. You. That was the real risk all along. Not losing the man, but losing yourself. And God wouldn't let that happen. You were too valuable, too set apart, too deeply called. You carry something rare, something heaven protected. And that's why this warning had to come. Not to hurt you, not to make you afraid, but to remind you that nothing is allowed to eclipse the glow God placed inside of you. You didn't just let go of a man. You let go of every lie that said you needed someone like that to feel whole. You let go of the illusion that your future was tied to someone else's performance. You let go of the anxiety that came from constantly wondering, what if this is it? Now you know. It wasn't. And because of that truth, you are finally walking into the fullness of your divine timeline. Nothing held back, nothing filtered, nothing forced. God has been waiting for this moment. He's been watching patiently, knowing the choice would come, knowing your spirit would rise above the pressure. And you did. You listened. You felt the shift. And you didn't ignore it. That obedience is unlocking something radical. People will begin to notice. They won't be able to explain it, but they'll feel the glow around you. They'll sense the peace that covers you. They'll wonder how you look lighter, stronger, more radiant, and you won't need to say a word. Heaven already did the explaining. Your life will now reflect the reward of spiritual alignment. There is no regret. There is only revelation. There is no loss. There is only lightness. There is no bitterness. Only breakthrough. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not broken. You are right on time. The distraction came right before the door opened for a reason. Because you were moments away from divine access. And the enemy wanted to sneak one last imitation into your story to see if you'd settle. You didn't. You rose. Now the access is yours. The favor is yours. The doors are opening, not because someone pulled strings, but because God did. Not because someone knew the right name, but because you remembered yours. You are the chosen one. You don't need to be impressed. You are the one who impresses heaven by simply obeying. This is your reward season, and what's coming has no comparison to what just left. The absence of that man created the space for the miracles that were being delayed. Your time is here. Your clarity is loud. Your alignment is final. You've been approved. Heaven has been watching. Every decision, every thought, every spiritual response. And now that this test has passed, God is releasing what was held in waiting. Not because you begged for it, not because you proved something to others, but because you proved something to yourself, that your spirit is stronger than your emotion, that your purpose is louder than your distraction, and that your loyalty belongs to God, not to a performance. There's something sacred about what happens after obedience. It's not always fireworks and fanfare. It's stillness, then momentum. That's what you're stepping into now. The momentum of a life finally cleared of spiritual noise. No more delays caused by hidden motives. No more friction from counterfeit alignments. No more pressure to pretend. You are finally aligned. And in this alignment, God can now trust you with more. Because make no mistake, this was about trust. God already knew you were anointed. He already knew you were chosen. But being chosen isn't about status. It's about stewardship. Can you manage what doesn't make sense? Can you discern what looks divine but moves like deception? Can you say no to what excites your eyes when your spirit says wait? These are the tests only the mature pass, and you've passed. This man, this name, this storm wrapped in charm, it was a checkpoint. It was the final illusion. And now that you've walked away, you've stepped into something bigger than you imagined. This next chapter is weightier, richer, filled with divine intersections and favor only God could orchestrate. And now there's room. Room in your heart, in your calendar, in your energy, in your space, for what is actually meant for you. You'll begin to see signs, divine confirmations that the path is now clear. Unusual peace in areas that used to feel tight. Emails or calls with long-awaited answers. Financial favor that seems to flow out of nowhere. These aren't accidents. They are God's response to your alignment. Because you honored the warning, heaven is honoring the promise. You'll never forget his name, not because of pain, but because of what it revealed in you. It showed you that even the most impressive names lose power when your discernment is fully awake. It showed you that no matter how well someone plays the part, they cannot penetrate a soul protected by divine truth. It showed you that you, yes, you, are now unshakable. And that unshakable presence is what qualifies you for the next dimension. Not everyone gets there. Not everyone answers the warning. Many stay too long, hoping someone will change, hoping red flags will fade. But you listened. You felt God. And even when your heart wanted to stay, your spirit stood up. That's spiritual strength. That's warrior energy. That's what makes you a true chosen one. Now you are ready for the type of connections that come without confusion. The type of opportunities that come without compromise. The type of peace that doesn't ask for performance. And the type of abundance that follows obedience, not negotiation.